Well, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everyone. This is Angie the Coder, and today I'm going to take you out to the AAPC's Codify website and show you how to use their new 2021 EM calculator. I had a lot of fun doing this, and I hope you will enjoy the video, and let's go. So I guess the first thing we need to do is start with a patient. So let's start with this one. Mr. Forrest is an established office visit. His chief complaint is he's there to follow up for diabetes 2 and hyperlipidemia. His diabetes is controlled well on his current dose of metformin. His hyperlipidemia is stable on Lipitor. His blood pressure is 120/60, temp of 98.6, weight of 180 pounds. His eyes are equal. Ocular movements of his eyes. His cardiovascular is regular rate and rhythm. His lungs are clear to auscultation, and his abdomen is non-tender. As you see, the provider did get a history and a physical, although we won't be looking at that when we assign this level. It's just there for good patient care. The assessment plan, that's what we're going to focus on, is as follows. Diabetes stable. Reviewed the A1C today done by the reference lab, normal findings, continue current dose of metformin, adhere to an ADA diet, and get exercise. Number 2, patient had hyperlipidemia. Reviewed the lipid profile that was performed by the reference lab, normal lipid findings, continue current dose of Lipitor, follow up in 6 months. Okay, so now that we have this example, let's go out and see how it looks when we try to code this. Okay, so I'm out here on my AAPC account, and since I already have Codify, which I use for my encoder for coding, I'm just going to go to where it says Books and Software, and go down here to where it says Codify, and there it is. Now this is how it normally looks for me, except that when you go now under coding tools, you'll find that there's an EM calculator, but there's also an EM calculator 2021. This is the one we're going to be using today. This is our new fun Christmas toy that we're going to play with. Anyway, so once we get in here, it's asking us first for our encounter data. So what type of service was it? It was a office visit, and it was an established patient. Established patient. And we're just gonna, I didn't give you guys a date of service, so we are gonna go with the date of service of 1/1/2021, just to make it simple. But you would put whatever date of service you have would go in there. But we're just gonna use the simple date of 1/1/2021. And I don't know about you guys, but I hope 2021 is way better than 2020 was. So after we do all that, we're just gonna hit the save button. It's gonna take us to the next part, which is the medical decision-making part. So when we get here, this is when we go through our columns. They're not going to be columns on here, but you guys will remember from the MDM video that I did, how the MDM grid has 3 columns. And the first column is the number and complexity of problems addressed. So it's just in a different format. So what we're going to do is we're going to determine what kind of problem did the patient have. Well, let's go back to our example. The patient had 2 problems. They had stable diabetes, which is a chronic condition, and stable hyperlipidemia, which is another chronic condition. And if you guys have any doubts about what's considered a chronic condition and what's considered an acute or whatever, remember that if you go, hold on, let's see if I can get to it. If you go to the AMA source document, which I will link in the description below, the definition is actually in there. And try not to. All right, there we go. So a stable chronic illness is a problem with an expected duration of at least a year or until the death of the patient. For the purpose of defining chronicity, conditions are treated as chronic whether or not staged or severity changes. For instance, uncontrolled diabetes and controlled diabetes are both considered a single chronic condition. Okay, so we're not going to go any further than that, but I just wanted to show you that your definitions are right here. So you don't have to worry. All you have to do is go to this link from the AMA, go to this document, and these definitions are right there for you, okay? So go back to here, and we're going to say this patient had 2 or more stable chronic illnesses. Nothing else was addressed by the provider at this visit. All right, that's all they had. So we move on from problems to the amount of data reviewed or analyzed. So let's talk about what kind of data, and I'm zooming this out so you guys can see that there's some boxes we have to fill in over here to the right. But what kind of data did this provider review or analyze? Well, if you go back to the example, he reviewed an A1C that was done by the reference lab. The patient had normal findings. He also reviewed a lipid profile that was also performed by the reference lab. Now, I am putting this in this example so that we can have this discussion. I wanted to make it very clear in this note that the A1C and the lipid profile were done by another provider. They were done by a pathologist in the reference lab. So your doctor is just reviewing the report from the reference lab doctor. So he gets credit for reviewing 2 labs, an A1C and a lipid profile. I hope I made that clear. Anyway, but I will tell you, in real life, your doctors aren't going to say this. This is going to be where it's important that you understand how your office is run. It's important that you understand if the doctor himself is doing the lab and billing for it, or if he's reviewing the lab done by an outside provider or a provider other than himself. So that's going to be an internal thing. So let's go back out to our calculator, and what we're going to do is, did we review prior external records or notes? No. Did we review results from a unique test? Yes. We reviewed 2. We reviewed a lipid panel and an A1C. So we get 2 points there. Did we order anything? No, not at this visit. We did not. And so we're finished with that part. Now, for each category of reviewed or analyzed data, select the checkbox. So, was an assessment requiring an independent historian done? No. Was an independent interpretation of the test done by the provider? No. And did this provider have to discuss the management or the test interpretation with another provider? No. But he did. We're going to click minimal because he reviewed it. So none of this other stuff happened. He just reviewed it. Now if we go down to the last category, this would be, if you're on your risk table, this would be your 3rd column. So this is your 3rd portion that you do. So diagnostic procedures and management. He did do prescription drug management because he reviewed the labs and determined that the patient was stable on their current therapy, and he decided to keep the therapy the same. He decided not to change the dose of the Lipitor and not to change the dose of the metformin, and he documented that. So I'm giving him credit for prescription drug management because he had to decide based on his evaluation of the patient and his review of the labs. He had to decide whether the patient needed an increase or a reduction in their drugs, or if he was going to leave it the same, and he left it the same. So I'm giving him credit for prescription drug management. None of these other things apply. So we're pretty much done. This gives us a final level of medical decision making of moderate, and if you see down below, it gives you the code. Okay? And you're done. Hey, so now that we've discovered that Mr. Forrest was a 99214, let's see if we have maybe a new patient to code. And it looks like we might. Mrs. Present is a new office visit. Her chief complaint is chest pain. Miss Present is a 52-year-old patient with chest pain for the past week. She states that she has been under tremendous stress lately due to being laid off from work. Her pain is not associated with diaphoresis or nausea. Taking deep breaths helps alleviate the pain. The patient can walk up 2 flights of stairs without getting short of breath. Her review of symptoms is negative for fever, chills, syncope, visual changes, hearing changes, changes in bowel or bladder habits, no musculoskeletal pain, no depression, but she is positive for stress. There is a small exam here, which we will not need, but it's there for patient care. And the assessment and plan is as follows. Chest pain. EKG was performed by the provider and is normal. And I'm going to just stop right there. That EKG is also going to be billed by this provider. Chest pain does not appear to be cardiovascular or musculoskeletal in nature. It is most likely due to the patient's stress. Referring the patient to a counselor, ordering Zoloft 25 milligrams, follow up in 3 months if no further chest pain, call immediately or go to ED if chest pain returns. That was a mouthful. All right, so now let's go out and code this one. So we're going back to Codify, and we're going to just clear everything out. We're going to go to the encounter data and zoom in so you guys can see. And it is a office visit. And the type is a new patient. And we're going to use the same data service. Let's just pretend like the data service is January 1st, 2021. I'm sorry for anyone who has to work on New Year's Day, but we're just going to pretend like we're working on New Year's Day. Hit the save button. And now we're going to go into our medical decision making because he did not document tons. So let's go down. And what have we got going on here? We have an undiagnosed new problem with uncertain prognosis. Let me think about that. It was undiagnosed because if you think about it, it is a new problem. We know that. Is it undiagnosed with uncertain prognosis? Maybe. He says the patient has chest pain, which is a new problem. He did an EKG that was normal. He doesn't think, it says it does not appear to be cardiovascular or musculoskeletal in nature, so he doesn't really know what it is. He's thinking that it's possibly due to stress. So he's sending the patient to a counselor and he's ordering her some anti-anxiety medication. And he's telling her to follow up if no further chest pain. So I'm going to give this as, I'm going to count this as a new problem, because it is for this provider. Undiagnosed, because we're really not sure if this is, we know it's a new problem, and we're not certain that the patient has anxiety, but we're also, so we're going to send them to a therapist to have them evaluated more for that. We're also giving them a medication so that if it is anxiety, it should get better. And we are leaving the door open that the patient may need to come back for if they have further chest pain, if stress reduction and taking Zoloft doesn't help. So I'm going to give that an undiagnosed new problem. And then I'm going to go into the section where I do review and analyze data. So what did the provider, let me zoom this back out so we can see it. Oops, sorry about that. All right, review of prior external notes. No. Review of results of a unique test or ordering of a unique test. Now this is where we need to have a conversation. Because the provider is able to bill for the EKG, because the provider actually performed and interpreted and is going to bill the EKG, we have to be really careful here. But he did have to order that EKG, so I'm going to give him credit for that. 1 point there. And then we come down here and it says, did the provider, does this assessment require independent historian? No. Was there an independent interpretation of the test performed by a test that was performed by another physician or qualified healthcare provider that's not separately reportable? Okay, so he did independently review or interpret that EKG, but he is separately reporting it. So you cannot give him credit here. Now the last one is discussion of management of the test. Zoom in here. Or test interpretation with the external physician. He didn't do that. So we're going to give it this minimal again. And once again, let me clarify. Yes, he did interpret an EKG, but he is also going to bill that out. you guys aren't seeing this, but I'm just telling you that the provider is going to bill an EM code, and he's also going to bill the EKG. So he cannot bill for the interpretation, that independent interpretation, because he is separately reporting that with the code for the EKG. Okay, now let's get on to the last section. He did do an EKG, so we're going to put that there. What else did he do? He sent the patient out to go to counseling. Let's see if there's something about that in here. I don't see anything. He did do prescription drug management because he did initiate the Zoloft for the patient. So he did start the Zoloft. And so we're going to stop there. And once again, we have moderate decision making, but this time it's a 99204. So do you see, guys, how this works? I'm not promising you that I am the guru, the best at this, but this is just basically how I see it. So I really enjoy this tool. I think it's a lot of fun to use. If you don't want to pay for the Codify software, which I will do more videos on it too to show you why to me it's worth the amount of money you pay for the monthly membership for the Codify software. I think I pay $40 a month, and I really depend on this. There are so many great resources, and I won't go through and bore you with those right now, but maybe in a future video we'll look at some more of the cool things that you can get from the software. But if you choose and you want to go the free route, which I'm doing the free route too, I'm doing them both. I just got excited that the AAPC added this calculator to the software I was already paying for, and I'm not paying more for it. I'm paying the same amount, so it's kind of free to me, to be honest with you, since I was already getting the software to begin with. But if you want to go the free route, then download this link for the AMA MDM grid. It will be in the description below, and just use it. It's super easy to use. And if you want to learn how to use this, I do have a video on this. One of my previous videos is all about using this grid. So there's that. I want to thank you guys for watching this video, and I want to thank you for all the comments and the emails that I've been receiving from you guys. I'm trying to answer them. There's so many of them. You guys are asking such good questions, and a lot of your questions really require a lot of thought on my part and research. So I'm getting back to you as fast as I can. This has been a super busy month, so I will do my best to get back in touch with all you guys. But I want to wish you a very Merry Christmas and hopefully a way happier New Year than the one we had this year. So bless you all, and see you in the next video.